range of public interest factors which we have discussed in our judgment. Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against
the Bell Hotel scandal, when judges put migrants before British communities. Right, let's get straight into this because what I'm about to tell you will absolutely astound you. Before we dive in, if you're not already subscribed to UK Connors, hit that subscribe button now because we're delivering the hard truths about British politics that the mainstream media won't touch. This is precisely the sort of story that exposes just how utterly broken our system has become. Picture this: a small Essex community, Epping Forest, desperately trying to shut down a migrant hotel that's become a focal point of local unrest and controversy. Seems reasonable, doesn't it? Local democracy in action, residents having their say, councils representing their constituents. Well, think again, because 3 judges at the Court of Appeal have just delivered a judgment so breathtakingly tone-deaf that it reads like satire. Lady Justice Nicola Davies, Lord Justice Bean, and Lord Justice Cobb have ruled that the rights of asylum seekers must trump the legitimate concerns of British taxpayers who actually live in the area. Not just trump them, mind you, but obliterate them entirely. The judgment states, and I quote directly here, that the most important factor against the injunction is the importance of the public interest in the accommodation of destitute asylum seekers. Let that sink in for a moment. The public interest, according to these learned judges, is not in protecting British communities from the chaos and disruption they're experiencing. It's not in ensuring local residents feel safe in their own neighborhoods. No, the public interest lies in keeping illegal migrants comfortable in taxpayer-funded hotels, even when those very hotels have become flashpoints for serious incidents. And what serious incidents, you might ask? Well, the Bell Hotel has been embroiled in allegations of sexual misconduct involving 2 of its residents. But apparently, according to our judicial overlords, the inconvenience of moving these individuals to alternative accommodation outweighs the safety and security concerns of the local community. The judges were particularly concerned that asylum seekers might have to change their GP registrations. I mean, heaven forbid they should face such administrative burden while the local community lives in fear and frustration. The sheer audacity of this reasoning is staggering. The Court of Appeal was genuinely worried about the disruption that would be caused by relocating asylum seekers to different accommodations. They fretted about the upheaval to their lives, the inconvenience of switching doctors, the trauma of moving locations. But what about the disruption to the lives of British families who've watched their community transform overnight? What about their inconvenience, their trauma, their very real concerns about safety and security? Now here's where it gets even more outrageous. The Home Office, in defending this position, made an argument so brazen it's almost criminal. They told the court that local residents' anger about migrant hotels must be viewed in the context of demands on the accommodation estate. Translation: your concerns don't matter because we've got a system to maintain. Your feelings about your own community are secondary to our administrative convenience. Becca Jones, the Home Office's Director of Asylum Support, had the unmitigated goal to tell judges that while they are aware of local concerns, these must be balanced against accommodation demands. How magnanimous of them to acknowledge that British taxpayers have feelings about the complete transformation of their communities. How generous to admit these concerns are being heard before promptly dismissing them as inconsequential. If you're feeling a surge of anger right now, you should be. If you're not subscribed yet, now would be an excellent time to hit that button because we're just getting started on exposing this madness. But the real kicker, the moment that should have every British taxpayer absolutely seething, came when the Home Office argued that the relevant public interests in play are not equal and are fundamentally different in nature. They actually claimed that while Epping represents merely local planning concerns, the Home Secretary represents the public interest of the whole United Kingdom. The arrogance is breathtaking. Local communities aren't representing legitimate public interests, apparently. They are just NIMBY troublemakers getting in the way of the grand project. Edward Brown KC, speaking for the Home Office, had the brass neck to suggest that providing accommodation for asylum seekers was in the national interest. Not maintaining social cohesion, not protecting established communities, not ensuring taxpayers feel secure in their own country. No, the national interest is apparently served by forcing unwanted developments onto communities while dismissing their objections as parochial whinging. The judges weren't content with just ruling against the local community, though. Oh no, they went further. They actually suggested that Epping Forest District Council should have sought court orders to prevent local demonstrations. Yes, you heard that correctly. Rather than addressing the underlying issues causing community unrest, the judicial solution is to silence a community entirely, shut them up, suppress their democratic right to protest, and keep the system running smoothly. Lord Justice Bean was particularly scathing about the council's approach, accusing them of using unfair tactics in bringing the case. Unfair tactics. A democratically elected local authority representing the legitimate concerns of its constituents was engaging in unfair tactics by seeking legal remedy through proper channels. The same judge who was perfectly comfortable with the Home Office steamrolling local democracy suddenly developed concerns about procedural fairness when it suited the government's position. The timeline here is absolutely crucial to understanding contempt these institutions have for local communities. The Bell Hotel had been housing asylum seekers since February 2025, but the council took no immediate action because the Home Office assured them no planning permission was required. It was only when serious incidents occurred and community tensions escalated that the council felt compelled to act. Yet the judges criticized this as delay, as if communities should immediately resort to legal action the moment unwanted developments appear in their area. This brings us to the most damning aspect of this entire saga. The Home Office explicitly warned that allowing this injunction could set a precedent that would encourage other councils to challenge migrant hotel placements. Think about what they're actually saying here. They are terrified that local democracy might start functioning, that communities might begin asserting their rights, that the imposed consensus might begin to fracture. Piers Riley-Smith from Simone Hotels, the company profiting from this arrangement, claimed that closing the hotel would cause hardship to asylum seekers. This is the same company that admitted the hotel was a lifeline because paying customers had abandoned it, with occupancy rates of just 1% in August 2022. So we have a failed business model being subsidized by taxpayers, imposed on unwilling communities, defended by judges who prioritize administrative convenience over democratic consent. The reaction from Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick cut straight to the heart of the matter. He observed that the Court of Appeal decided the public interest lay in keeping illegal migrants in hotel accommodation while completely disregarding harm to local residents. More tellingly, he noted that the system now actively encourages suppressing local protests rather than addressing the underlying issues causing them. The entire system, as he put it, has been turned against the British people. And that's precisely what this case represents, the complete inversion of democratic priorities. We have reached a point where judicial, executive, and administrative power conspires against the interests and wishes of British communities. The judges worry about asylum seekers changing their doctors while ignoring resident concerns about safety. The Home Office frets about accommodation estate management while dismissing community cohesion. The system protects those who shouldn't be here while attacking those who belong here. What makes this even more galling is the naked hypocrisy involved. These same institutions that show such exquisite sensitivity to the comfort and convenience of asylum seekers show nothing but contempt for the taxpayers funding the entire operation. The disruption to asylum seekers' lives matters. The disruption to British families' lives doesn't. The administrative burden on illegal migrants is a grave concern. The social and economic burden on legal residents is irrelevant. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to keep exposing exactly how this system operates against British interests. The precedent being set here extends far beyond one hotel in Essex. What we're witnessing is a crystallization of a governance model that systematically prioritizes the rights and comfort of those who have no legal right to be here over the legitimate interests of those who do. The judges have essentially ruled that local democracy is subordinate to administrative convenience, that community consent is less important than bureaucratic efficiency, that British taxpayers exist to serve a system rather than being served by it. This isn't about compassion or humanitarian concerns, despite how it's being framed. This is about power and who wields it. The comfortable classes who make these decisions don't live in the communities affected by them. The judges returning to their leafy suburbs after delivering these pronouncements won't face the daily reality of what they've imposed. The Home Office officials crafting these policies won't send their children to schools overwhelmed by rapid demographic change, or watch their neighborhoods transform beyond recognition. The Bell Hotel case represents something far more sinister than judicial overreach or bureaucratic incompetence. It represents the emergence of a system that views ordinary British people as obstacles to be overcome rather than citizens to be served. When judges worry more about asylum seekers changing their GP than residents fearing for their safety, we've crossed a line that should terrify anyone who believes in democratic governance. The community in Epping tried everything the system told them to do. They worked through their local council, they followed proper procedures, they sought legal remedy through established channels. And for their troubles, they've been lectured about their selfishness, warned about their prejudices, and told that their concerns must yield to higher administrative priorities. This is how democracy dies, not through dramatic coups or constitutional crises, but through the slow strangulation of local voice and community consent. The judges' concern about setting precedents is particularly revealing. They are not worried about the precedent of imposing unwanted developments on communities without consent. They are not concerned about the precedent of dismissing legitimate local concerns as irrelevant. No, their concern is that other communities might get ideas, might start asserting their democratic rights, might begin demanding that their voices matter in decisions affecting their lives. What we're seeing is a completion of a project that's been decades in the making. The transformation of British democracy from a system where power flows upward from communities into one where it flows downward from bureaucratic elites. Local communities aren't stakeholders in this vision. They are simply locations where policies are implemented, regardless of local wishes or democratic consent. The Home Office's argument that their interests represent the whole United Kingdom, while local communities represent mere parochial concerns, perfectly captures this inversion. In their worldview, the real Britain isn't the sum of its communities and their wishes, but an abstract administrative entity that exists above and apart from the people who actually live here. Local democracy isn't part of British democracy. It's an obstacle to it. This is why the Bell Hotel case matters so much more than one hotel in one Essex town. It's a perfect crystallization of how our system now operates. Communities are told what they'll accept. Their objections are dismissed as prejudice or ignorance. Their democratic representatives are accused of unfair tactics when they try to represent local interests. And the entire apparatus of state power aligns to crush local resistance to impose policies. Subscribe now if you value this kind of analysis, because mainstream media won't give you these perspectives. The most chilling aspect of this judgment is how it weaponizes compassion against democracy. The judges present their decision as humanitarian, as protecting vulnerable people, as serving higher moral purposes. But strip away the rhetoric, and what you have is raw power exercise against democratic consent. The same system that shows such exquisite sensitivity to asylum seekers' convenience shows nothing but contempt for taxpayers' concerns. The same institutions that worry about administrative disruption to illegal migrants actively seek to suppress democratic expression by legal residents. We're witnessing the creation of a two-tier system where different standards apply to different groups. Asylum seekers' right to stable accommodation trumps residents' right to community security. Migrant administrative convenience outweighs taxpayers' democratic voice. The comfort of those who shouldn't be here matters more than the consent of those who belong here. This isn't sustainable, and deep down, the architects of this system know it. That's why they are so concerned about precedents, so worried about other communities getting ideas, so determined to suppress local protests. They understand that their entire project depends on preventing communities from organizing effective resistance. Once people realize they can say no, once communities understand they can assert their democratic rights, the whole edifice becomes vulnerable. The Bell Hotel judgment will be remembered as a watershed moment, the point where the mask finally slipped completely. Here, in black and white legal reasoning, we see exactly how our system prioritizes foreign nationals over British citizens, administrative convenience over democratic consent, bureaucratic efficiency over community cohesion. The judges have done us all a favor by making the power dynamic so explicit, so undeniable, so impossible to ignore. But remember what Epping Forest District Council said. They are taking this to the Supreme Court. This isn't over. Local democracy might be under assault, but it's not dead yet. Communities across Britain are watching this case, learning from it, understanding what they are really up against. The precedent the judges feared is being set anyway, just not the one they intended. Communities are learning that the system won't protect them, that they must protect themselves, that democratic consent means nothing unless it's actively defended. That's why channels like this matter, why your subscription matters, why sharing these stories matters. The mainstream narrative wants you to believe this is all inevitable, that demographic transformation and community disruption are just things that happen, natural forces beyond democratic control. But the Bell Hotel case proves otherwise. These are policy choices made by identifiable people, implemented through specific institutions, defended by particular arguments. And policy choices can be challenged. Institutions can be held accountable. Arguments can be refuted. The system revealed itself completely in this case, showed us exactly how it operates and whose interests it really serves. Now it's up to us to decide what we do with that knowledge. The judges think they've settled the matter, that communities will accept their subordinate status and learn to live with whatever is imposed upon them. But British people have a long history of proving such assumptions wrong, and this time will be no different. So there you have it, the Bell Hotel scandal in all its grotesque glory. Subscribe to UK Connors for more analysis that cuts through the propaganda and tells you what's really happening in British politics. Hit that notification bell. Share this with anyone who needs to understand what we're really up against. And remember that democracy only survives when people are willing to defend it. The system is counting on your apathy, your resignation, your acceptance of the unacceptable. Don't give them that satisfaction.